So good sports radio. I am Princess Robinson. I had to play that. There's no need of playing a intro, right? Duck Riley, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Hey, Princess, I was up moving. I had to sit back down.
Fourth and a fraction. That's what he has left. My favorite Pit Panther of all time.
Oh boy.
That
Okay.
is on. Let me let Paula in. I don't want no stuff from Paula. She's now in the system.
She's cooking bacon for Glenn.
She's the best. She's the best.
That's right.
Hey, Paula, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Awesome, awesome. I want to make sure I got you in. Glenn Deveaux, welcome to the show, Coach.
Thank you. Thank you, Princess. Appreciate you having me. Always a pleasure. You make my day, my evening. Absolutely.
Amen. Amen. That's right. Pit Panther himself, Duck. You want to get started? I'm excited about this one. I even put the
Okay.
helmet on the graphic, Duck. Did you see that?
No, no. I think whatever you sent out got cut off the
Okay.
bottom part.
All right. Let's
So
get started. I want to know about more Camp Lineman. I see you moving, Glenn DeVoe. I see you moving.
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, Glenn, just kind of tell the listeners a little bit about how you got started and where you plan on taking this to.
Absolutely. Started Camp Lineman back in 2012. It was a concept. Actually, ironically, I was working a different football camp for all positions in Hawaii, and I was just looking at how when the camp began, they focused on the quarterbacks, the receivers, the DBs, everybody else except for the linemen. At the end, after they've already told everybody where they would be, they told the linemen, they said, "Hey, corner in the end zone, get in the hole," kind of one of those things. But yet, those were the most athletic guys, a guy that size with that mobility and stuff like that. So, I was like, man, we should do something for linemen where we literally teach and make them the focal point. So the first year in 2012, we did two camps, one in Charlotte, North Carolina, and one in Atlanta, Georgia. And they were 2-day camps. I mean, we kept them all day. We fed them lunch. And what I noticed just in doing those two camps alone, the second day, about 50% of the kids didn't show back up. It was literally that much. It was literally that much work. So we went to a 1-day camp and we did that for about 2 or 3 years. And then came up with the formula. Coaching high school football, you're lucky if you get 10 or 15 minutes of individual time each day. So if I gave you a week of high school, you may get Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 10 to 15 minutes. Thursday, the JV would play, so it's a walkthrough for varsity. And then on Friday, it would be the game for the varsity. So you're talking 30 to 45 minutes a week. So we came up with the concept that we try to give the kids a year's worth of individual practice and skills in one of our camps. So now we go from 8:30 to 12:30, and that's been ongoing for the last 6 years. We've expanded to 12 different, really 11 states in 12 cities this year. So we do California, Florida, North Carolina. We added Birmingham, Alabama this year, which was a huge success. Knoxville and Nashville in Tennessee, Richmond, Virginia, Lexington, Kentucky. We go to Sophia, West Virginia. Columbus, Ohio was new for us. It was very good. Atlanta, Georgia, which we went to last weekend, and we have Baltimore, Maryland coming up next weekend. But it's been good. We're going to kind of make some adjustments with, you know, those cities. We're thinking about removing Georgia, removing Baltimore, and adding Texas, South Carolina, and then a couple little regional areas like Raleigh, and kind of go from there.
Okay. Uh, before we move on, Princess Tim's trying to log in. Okay. Glenn,
Okay. Do I need to
Yeah, yeah, he just, yeah, you had sent the link to both of us.
Okay, I'll resend it to him. No problem.
Okay. Glenn, you talked about, basically, how you looked at it and stuff like that. I was always curious about that because sometimes I could hear comments by some of the kids about, oh, Dad, we got to go down to the corner. We're not getting that love that everybody else is getting. They're doing 7-on-7. But you brought in the concept of some one-on-one. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so basically, we try to our curriculum for the camp is, if a kid come, they're going to work on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. So we start with the basics: stand, start, hand placement, hand separation, and we'll go run progression and then go pass progression. And we're trying to give them that skill set to where when we get to the end of camp and we want to do one-on-ones are more like the test of everything that they've learned. Their alignment on the defensive side of the ball, their alignment, their assignment. We teach a guy, on the defensive side of the ball to take on a half a man versus trying to go right down the middle of that guy, basically cutting his body in half. So you're going to shade on one side or the other. So we hope that they're able to use a lot of those techniques doing that. And that's a coaching opportunity, even during the one-on-one period, because what happens when a kid when anxiety hit or they panic, they revert back to the old habit. So once again, we put them in that fire and try to make sure that we coach them up all the way through that period. But yeah, we definitely do one-on-ones for our younger guys who may not be as skilled yet for that one-on-one. We'll do tug of war, or we'll have them run the hoop, just for anything competitive. I mean, we want to kind of make sure that they leave there on a high note.
Yeah, I wanted I'm glad you said that because you have kids 8 to 18. How are you breaking them up?
Well, for example, this week, based on the numbers, we were 13 and under were together, and 14 and up were together. Typically, it's 14 to 16, so pretty much high school and beneath high school. Sometimes we'll have some middle schoolers who will kind of play up. Like for example, we had a guy out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. He's eighth, rising ninth grader. He was 6'5", 240. We couldn't put him with the pups. We had to put him with the big boys. So he's going to be another one to watch. His name's Ike. He's going to be another one to watch. We're blessed to be able to get an upfront view of a lot of these kids who are talented and have this God gifted skill size. And if they continue to work, they typically elevate and they get to play at the higher level. So, because we've been around long enough, we've been able to see that.
Now, how impressed are when you open up with the parents and with the young men, in the beginning, once you get everybody together and you talk to them about some of the people you had come through is now in college and into the NFL or CFL.
Well, yeah, we definitely during our orientation, it's an opportunity to kind of give them an overview of where we've come from and what they can expect for their child. We try to set those expectations up front and we let them know that we don't know who's going to be that next person. And to your point, yeah, we have guys like who've come to our camps. Jamari Sawyer, who's with the Dolphins, Andrew Thomas, who's is a fourth overall pick. He's with the Giants. He's their left tackle. Ikem Ekwano, he's a starting left tackle with the Carolina Panthers. Wanye Morris, he's with the Atlanta Falcons now. Collegiately, we got guys like Aaron Fenimore, who came to us initially in the fifth grade at a camp in Tennessee. He's going into his third year at Liberty University right now, up for the Remington Award, which is the number one center in the nation, Outland Trophy, the Lombardi Trophy. We have kids at UT Martin, you name it, JMU, all over, which is it's a blessing. I mean, over the 14 years, we've had over 200 kids who've attended our camp, at least make it to the collegiate level. So, we're proud of that fact, and we're always looking for the next kid who has the discipline and aptitude to just kind of stay on their craft, focus on their academics and balance the two, and just stay humble along the process, continue to work.
Now, Glenn, let's talk about longevity because we all know, everybody on here know that a lot of these camps might be good, come in for 1 year, maybe 2 years, maybe, but not as long as you put this together. Let's talk about the longevity of that.
Well, I mean, we always, from our perspective, we always, honor God with, blessing us with a vision and, the perseverance to allow us to kind of come through because it hasn't always been as successful as it is now. That first year we started the business, we literally subsidized the camps to make sure that they took place. But we believed in it. We really believed in it. And once we got traction, we just continued to push and push and push. And I'll have to shout out, the coaches who've helped along the way. We've had a number of coaches. We partnered with the NFLPA. You've assisted a lot with identifying other collegiate coaches. We've created relationships with like when we're in Tennessee with schools like Carson Newman. Well, we've had over the last 4 years players from there come and assist. This year we're in Nashville, Tennessee. Coach Hargrave he was able to send us some guys from his organization. And now with the NIL, we could actually have those guys come in, assist. We could compensate them. We're all compliant with the NCAA. So it's a win-win. We've been able to continue to grow. And we're hoping that we can encourage some of these young people to continue to come back and be a part and help us grow it. We have guys like Greg Ellaby, who played at UNC Chapel Hill, Antoine Robbins, who played at the University of South Carolina, Sam Wright, who played at South Carolina State, variety of guys and because of the network that we've had, like we went to Ohio a couple weeks ago and ran into Aaron Tiller, played at Southern University. He's currently the D-line coach at Bowie State. To have a guy who's actively coaching collegiately right now, just help these guys understand what it's like to really be coached by a college coach. And he really elaborated on a lot of expectations, the focus on the academics and things like that, just so we could kind of push through and just kind of hammer that message home to them.
Now, what type of questions are you receiving from the parents when they look up and say, "Oh, okay, it's an O line, D line camp," but they still have questions?
A lot of the questions are, one, what can they expect out of our camp? Could we make recommendations for other camps? Because we're kind of a unicorn in that regard. There are a lot of camps, and there are a lot of camps that'll say lineman challenges. Well, they're doing a bunch of one-on-ones. No one's really teaching the guys the proper techniques or how to correct a mistake. Or if I got beat, what can I do? Can I reset my hands? And those are things that we're able to do and kind of go from there and just kind of educate them on along the way through the process. I mean, some parents, say for example, if you grew up in South Carolina and you're a Clemson fan, you want to send your kid to a Clemson camp. Okay, that's great. He's going to get a T-shirt, but you're going to have 1,000 kids here, and he probably is not going to get a lot of reps. So what's the benefit of that? Ultimately, at the end of the day, when kids come through our camp, we want them to be encouraged, enthused, and want to continue to play football. We want to keep them encouraged and keep them playing it the right way, a good technique, and just growing. And like I said, we when we start, we tell them, hey, learn the game, not a position. You may have come here today saying I'm a left tackle. Well, that's great, but you're 12. You don't know how much you're going to grow. You don't know what the high school team is going to have in front of you. Let's say if that position is three deep now all of a sudden you need to move inside or you need to move to the other side. Are you going to have an open mind to kind of make that transition and give yourself a chance for some success?
Yeah, and it's interesting what you're saying, Glenn, because I want to know if you can expound on it a little bit more the differentiation of your camp compared to those challenge camps.
So with a lot of the challenge camps or evaluation camps where they're just getting like 40s and different things of that nature, I mean, what's going to show up, what coaches want to see, and you can attest to this, college coaches want to see film and film good habits, good stance, good start, good technique, good posture, Z in the knee, good get off, good bend. Uh, Even in terms of when we do our one-on-ones, a guy do the one-on-one rep, he has to hustle back to his position. That mindset of the discipline of hustling back, it transitions. When the coach is watching, he's evaluating, he's going to look at that and he's going to say, okay, what do I not have to teach this kid? If there are a lot of things he don't have to teach him, it's a high probability, because with our high school kids, it's tougher for them to find opportunities because of the transfer portal. A coach could say, hey, look, I'm going to go back and find me a 20-year-old sophomore, with a full body, not homesick, all these other things. I'd rather bring him in and give me a chance to, win right now. Because if you think about it, I mean, these coaches, they're lucky if they get 2 years, and they have to produce. If they don't produce, that's it. It's the days of bringing a kid in. I'm going to develop him. I'm going to put some weight on him. I'm going to get him stronger. I mean, now they want you to come in ready. And when they say ready, they mean technically sound, and have a little what we call FBI, football IQ. Understand, if I ask you to get into a 2-eye, it's going to be an inside shade on a guard. If I ask you to get into a 9 technique, if I ask you to get into a 1, right, you're going to shade to the left or the right of that center. I mean, those things, to really be able to understand that at a young age, and just really just articulate that, that's what we're hoping to kind of impart on them. We want them to have knowledge of the game, a passion for the game. And if you think about it, when you're prepared, when you really know the subject matter, even when you're in school, you feel good about it, you feel confident, you have a better chance of passing the test. And it's the same thing with football. It's all relative.
Okay, Glenn, and want to go back a little bit. How important bending the knees? A lot of kids come in kind of stiff, and most of the coaches say, "I want to see if this guy can bend."
Yeah, because when you bend, it's gonna allow you to create more power, more force. It's gonna prevent injuries, flexibility. They want to look at ankle, knees, hips. And those are all joints that kind of bend, move in different directions. It's important that you can withstand the rigors of a season, right? The off season. I mean, even if you think about like a lot of the lifts they do in the weight room, everything you do should be able to translate and transfer over on the football field. Whether it's a power clean, whether it's a squat, whatever that, whether it be a plyometric jump, all those things is going to require that force, that strength, from the calves to the hamstrings to the glutes. I mean, it's just, it all comes together, and it's very important that those skill sets transfer over. If I see a guy bending, not as flexible, there's going to be a higher probability he's going to have injuries. He's not going to be as durable. He may not be as explosive. So those are things that we kind of look at when we look for benders.
Okay. Now, in your opinion, weightlifting, when should that start?
It could start as young as 10 years old. Here's the deal. I'm talking like with dumbbells. Because with dumbbells, it doesn't restrict the range of motion. Like, you think about a bench press, you bring that bar down, it's gonna touch your chest. It's gonna limit your, kind of like how you would train a baseball guy, bands, body weight. You want them to have good technique. Don't be quick to put a bunch of weight on it. It could be the bar, but we want to make sure they have proper technique, because it's going to reduce the chances of injuries, and it's going to really just set them up for success in the long run.
Okay, Tim.
Yeah, Glenn. Let me talk to you a little bit about the business side of what you're doing. As you know, with a lot of endeavors where that are entrepreneurial, which it sounds like your camp has been. You sort of started small and have been building. When you reach a certain level of success, a lot of times you get either corporate support for what you're doing, or you get people who want to buy you out. Have you had corporate support from the Nikes, the Adidas, the Under Armours, those kind of people, or offers for those kinds of things? Or have you had people who've looked at your camp and say, "Look, man, I like what you're doing. I'd like to make you an offer."
No, I haven't had that, but let me just kind of put it out there. Hey, if you're looking to write that check, 980-722-3510, info@camplineman.com. No, we've had local level sponsors and things of that nature, which we're open to. One thing that we'll never concede to is we want to make sure that our messaging is out. I mean, we every camp we let people know about Ecclesiastes 9:10. Whatsoever your hand find to do, do it with all your might. We have a mission, purpose, vision. It's this is our ministry. So it's not about a dollar. Yeah, we're in business, and we're a for-profit business. We want to make as much as we can, within reason, right? We had our first sold out camp to where we cut off registration. And that was Nashville this year. Most businesses will say, no, just keep them coming. But we didn't want to sacrifice the integrity of what we offer. We want kids to have a good experience. We had 6 coaches there. The ratios were right. If we had a few more kids, it would have thrown our ratios right. We've worked too hard to secure a good reputation to concede just for a couple dollars. You know what I mean? It's like money come and go, but the impact that we could have on these kids' lives is more important, and we're charged with that. We really feel like that, not myself and the coaches and everybody involved.
Hmm. Along the same lines, I heard you talking about how you all sort of emphasize training, and a lot of the other camps, the challenge camps, I think you called them, tend to want kids to see how they compete as opposed to teaching them. Um, have you had any of those kind of camps come to you and try to partnership with you in terms of reaching further down into the pipeline? And having you recommend or send kids to them that are trained through your camp and ready to go to these competition camps or these challenge camps?
We have, and it's been a unequivocal no. We take kids where they are, right? Like a lot of those other ones, they want just the top dogs. They want the guys who the writers are going to write about. They're going to get that traction. We're developing, boys to men. We're really trying to build confidence, self-esteem. Our ratios are really good to where we can see if a kid is disconnected, if we need to pause, if we need to pull him out and remediate him. We really, 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 and no knock on anybody else, but at our shop, we really care about these kids and their well-being. And I'll take it to the extreme. If we feel like they aren't giving the effort, if they aren't locked in, if they're being the distraction, we'll pull them off and we'll have a conversation with the parents, and we'll offer to allow them to leave. I mean, that's how confident we are about what we're trying to do. I mean, we want everyone to win, and a win. Nelson Mandela said it best. He said, "I always win, I never lose. I, the loss is a lesson." Right. So we hope that they get a lesson from it. Right. If a kid didn't get to sleep, if he didn't hydrate, if he didn't prepare for the camp and he's struggling, we don't want him to get injured or get sick. So, we really pay close attention to all of those details, and just take pride in that. But yeah, we have had a couple companies reach out, but we're not interested in skewing our brand. I mean, if there was a true alignment, we would equitable alignment, we would consider something like that. But I mean, we're not interested just to get more numbers or whatever the case may be.
Okay. I saw, over the course of the last year or two, I've seen on your website that you all are doing camps in California. You're doing them in places like West Virginia and Virginia and Ohio and Pennsylvania. Are there areas of the country that you have not gone into that you are interested in expanding into?
Yes, we're going to Texas, God willing, next year. We're thinking Houston, Dallas to begin with. Yeah, we considered Arizona. We just have to make sure that here's where we need those partnerships because we typically travel with our equipment. And I'll be honest, I will not be making that drive to Arizona. So, we'd have to have a school who's aligned with us who will allow us to use equipment. We'll fly out, we'll bring our shirts, our marketing, and of course we'll execute from that standpoint. So I'll begin at the end of this month working on logistics, and hopefully by August, people could find our schedule for 2027 up. But definitely expect to add Texas and South Carolina and a few other areas we'll probably add to.
Okay. Princess?
So, Coach, do you leave them at the end of the day with um, verbal feedback or written feedback, each of them? How do you do that?
So, coaches are typically giving that feedback throughout the day, but yeah, we do spend quite a bit of time, one-on-ones with parents, with kids. When camp is over, it's not over technically. We may hang around, we'll take pictures, and we'll have conversations and really just speak to those specific things. Like at that point, parents are asking, "What can we do?" And we could look at that specific kid based on how that day went and give them good feedback, right? He needs work on his flexibility, a little more stretching, maybe yoga, hip mobility, different things of that nature. He could move linearly, but he can't move laterally, right? That's something that we need to kind of work on. So we could give him some specific feedback. The best investment any lineman parent can make is $5 for a jump rope. $5 for a jump rope. And that's something that we tell them, slow feet don't eat, right? Or a big man with good feet, he's gonna make a lot of money because it all start with the footwork, right? That's your foundation, and it goes up from there, right? You could be as strong as you want to be, but if I can't move my feet to get in position, I'm gonna be holding. So that's something that's very important. But yeah, we do give that feedback at the end of every camp.
Hey, Glenn,
Go ahead.
can I ask you something along those lines?
Sure.
Wait, now, when did you start your camp? Maybe that'll answer some of my question.
In 2012.
Oh, okay. So this was after, because you know that there's been a transition in the college game, in particular, from when the Miami Hurricanes and the Florida State Seminoles sort of had their heyday. They came onto the scene with an emphasis on speed, as opposed to, you were talking about the power programs that were like Nebraska and places like that, where they were big, strong, and the Big Ten programs from back in the day.
Right.
Um, uh, Most all of those programs have started to transition to a speed emphasis now. Is that what you've seen?
Yeah, well, zone, inside zone, outside zone. You have to have some speed to really get there to be able to reach that defensive lineman. You have to be able to really just get there. Literally, you have to be able to run, and that's going to attribute to what I was speaking about earlier about flexibility, mobility, all those things come together. Mechanics, right? From a dynamic warm up, we're talking rotating at the shoulders, opposite hand, opposite foot. We're really teaching these guys about, and that's how we start our camp. We're really teaching them about how to move, how to run. And we're emphasizing that through every different drill that we do, because like I said, it's a culmination at the end when it all comes together.
So, Glenn, I wanted to ask about the feedback and some of the questions. What are some of the main questions? And do those questions spill over into your thoughts on NIL and transfer portal? Do they get that, or are they just focused on their child at that point?
They're focused on that child. Some of the older parents of older kids ask for feedback and different, and we talk about that. From the beginning, we began talking about building a brand, and that you are your brand. Your last name is your brand. What you put on those tests in the classroom is a part of your brand. What you put in your social media is a part of your brand. What you put on your huddle in terms of executing, it's a part of your brand. What you do outside of, are you doing anything else? Am I just only a football guy? Or am I a good kid? Am I a Eagle Scout? What type of person are you? Who do you represent? And that's important, right? Even the people who you associate with. What type of group are you attracting? So we kind of start with that, and we always fall back to that.
Yeah. Now, I was watching some of your clips on your Facebook business page, and this young man couldn't have been, I don't know, maybe 10, 11, 12, but he was off to the side and he was getting one-on-one work. Do they all get that kind of one-on-one work, or because of his young age, maybe he was just, had some questions and getting something? Can you explain maybe the scenario of that? I thought that was really neat, first of all.
Well, there are some kids, like for example, even Saturday, we had a kid who came up to Coach Ellaby, and he just says, "Hey, Coach, he wanted to do the double swipe." he wanted to ask him about what could he do to work on getting off the ball a little quicker. Well, we have oversized resistance bands, which is something really good where mom or dad could kind of get involved in. That's something that we do that's a little different. We let the parents get not in the drill, but they get close enough to where in the earshot to where they could hear and see, because it's important to be transparent. They may hear a coaching point that resonated with their kid that they could use it to reinforce. We want them to be able to, we want this to be reusable, not like a one time you come and you use it and you're done. We want what we're teaching that they could take some of it and incorporate it, put it in their tool belt, and let that kind of be a part of those things. But that specific thing, he was asking for some additional directives. And fortunately, our guys are patient enough to kind of do that.
Amen. Amen. It gets bigger and bigger. I'm so proud to know you and to see how this is elevated. And maybe I didn't think about it, that you were teaching both sides of the line. I just naturally thought it was the offensive line. Do you see some that progressing, or the fact that left guard is so, I guess, important, or left tackle? Do they come in specifically wanting to know that? Do you see that some?
Yeah, we see that some. We see some guys who are undersized who they a lot of these guys have been coached. They know they're probably gonna have to play center or or inside on the defensive side of the ball from three technique to three technique. They'll play on the inside. But once again, everything is transferable. That skill set is, we really talked about ratios, where a guy aligned, if a guy lines inside. We talked about math, 1 to 2 ratio, where it'll be one kick, one punch. It's just a variety of different things, different techniques that we'll use to just really just teach, teach, teach. And like I said, even if I'm a defensive guy, to have to learn on the offensive side of the ball, you're learning you're learning what your opponent is trying to do to you, right? Offensive linemen wanna defensive linemen may want to create separation. Offensive linemen may want to keep you tighter, right? So they can hold you. It's just how it goes. So really, just understanding all of the nuances. How do I make adjustment? How do I get out of this situation, as opposed to just complaining he's holding, he's this, he's that. There are a lot of things that you can do to overcome it. So we're solution based.
Hey, Glenn, I know we're running out of time, but can you kind of give us a quick synopsis of what the techniques are? Your one technique, your two, your three, your four, because a lot of people that's listening to this, some probably have no idea what you're talking about.
Absolutely. So if you're on the defensive side of the ball, looking at an offensive line, you have a center, two guards. So if you center in the middle, two guards outside of him, and then tackles outside of him, and tight ends outside of them. If you head up on the center, if your alignment is head up, that's a zero technique. If you head up on the guard, that's a 2. If you head up on a four on a tackle, that's a 4. So as you can see, when you head up, you're even. So now if I line up on the center and I shade to the right or to the left, that's a 1 technique. That's considered a shade. Typically, if you shade it inside, you're going to be responsible for that gap. It's all about gaps. Between the center and the guard is an A gap. Between the guard and the tackle is a B gap. Between the tackle, between the tackle and the tight end is a C, and then outside, it just continues to go on and on and on. Now, back on the defensive technique side, if you're you shade the center, that's a 1. You get the guard, you shade to the outside of the guard, towards the outside, to outside of the field, that's a 3 technique. If you shade inside of the guard, and what I'm saying shade is if you take that man and you cut him down the middle, you move to that one side or the other. Inside of that is called a 2-eye. If you go to the tackle and you shade to the inside, it's called a 4-eye. The little I just stands for inside. When you get wide, wide, wide all the way out, that's considered a 9. If I shade outside of that or outside of the tight end, that's a 7. Don't ask me why it's a 7 and 9. That's just kind of rule that everybody in football knows about, and it's the same on both sides of the ball.
Okay. All
Hmm.
right, Coach, we got to get out of here. Thank you for expounding on that, Duck. That's way too heavy for me. I just want to watch football.
No, no, it's not. And I think you probably picked up on it because you're good with that. So we're gonna leave it up to Red.
We're gonna leave it up to Rev. Okay. Okay. Thank you guys. I appreciate you all. Let's reset because I see the redistricting speakers coming in. We'll reset here. Glenn Deveaux, I appreciate you. Hail to Pitt.
Thank you guys. Held a pit.
Good.
Hell
All
the
right,
pit, Doc.
yeah, Doug. All right, Tim and Duck, let me reset and get you all back in here in about 2 minutes. Never had it so good sports radio. Again, thank you, Coach. I appreciate that. And we'll be back. We're going to reset.